Welcome to episode 3 of Now for Someone Completely Interesting. My name's Ben Poulin. I'm your host, and I'm very excited for my guest this week. He went from filling prescriptions to pouring pints, from curing what ails you to curing you with ale. Okay, I'm going to stop at that one. He was a local pharmacist at one time here, turned brewmaster. Like I said, I'm happy and excited to introduce someone completely interesting, Colin Porozni. Now, first of all, Colin, before we get started here, I do want to say a big thank you for agreeing to come on the podcast. And secondly, a huge thank you for making this our first road trip, because we are actually recording right here at the Lakeland Brewing Company in St. Paul, Alberta. So thank you very much for having us here.
Oh, my pleasure.
All right, and last pun, let's hop to it.
I'm sure that's not going to be the last one.
That's all I got written down. So if something else comes up, it's off the top of my head. All right, Colin, like I said in the introduction here, you were a pharmacist at one time, and now you're our local brewmaster here at the Lakeland Brewing Company, which is your business here. How does that transition happen? That's got to be an interesting story.
Well, it is a good story, I guess. It's 25 years of being a pharmacist, and the brewing part was always kind of in the background. Actually, my parents, when I was 15 years old, they let me brew my first batch of beer in the basement.
Nice.
Which really surprised me, but it didn't work out. But of course, we still drank it because there was alcohol in it. That's how it kind of started. And 25 years of practicing pharmacy kept me busy. I didn't really have much time to brew beer, off and on occasion, but not as much as I'd like. I was looking for a career change, and it was right about that time that the Alberta government had changed the rules about getting a brewing license. So prior to, I think it was, not exactly the dates exactly, or somewhere around 2013, in Alberta, to open up a brewery prior to 2013, you had to be able to produce, and I think it was like 100,000 hectoliters a year.
That's right.
Which was a huge amount of beer, which meant it was a huge investment, right around probably $2 or $3 million to open up a brewery. So because of that, we only had 6 breweries in Alberta at that time. BC had probably 150, Ontario had well over 200, and we were stuck with 6 here. So, just around the same time that I decided to sell my drugstore, the Alberta government happened to change drop that restriction. So that kind of got the ball rolling, and I did some research, did lots of research. I did some online courses. I went down to University of California in Davis, took a 2-week course in the science of brewing. I knew how to brew beer. I didn't necessarily understand the entire science of it, and never would I have thought that I would be using my biochemistry that I learned 25, 30 years ago in university again. Just like anything, hands-on experience was still the best way to learn. So I made a couple trips down to Portland, flew down to Portland, spent some week with a couple different brewers there, and I learned more in a couple days there than I could in weeks of classroom learning. Just on a side note, if you ever want to get drunk for free, go to Portland, go to any brewery and tell them that you're from Canada and you're opening up a brewery.
Awesome. Well, hey, there's always useful information we can get on this podcast here. This is why we're doing this.
I spent the first day I got there, I had to rent a car, and I went to a couple different breweries that I spoke to. And by 10:30 that morning, the rent-a-car was parked. I hit about 5 more breweries after that. Again, getting tours, picking guys' brains, trying all their beer. They're willing to share recipes with me. Lo and behold, by whatever time it was at night, I forgot where my rent-a-car was. So it was a good trip to Portland.
Nice.
Yeah.
So to get that official designation as Brewmaster, so you took a couple courses, but is there anything that officially you have to?
Well, I should correct you. I guess you can't, in the traditional scope of things, a brewmaster has to have formal training from either Munich, Germany, or I think there's a college in the States as well too. But you head brewer, brewing technician, yeah.
Because they do have a program now, like you said, since 2013, and the microbrewery, the craft beer industry has exploded in the province. I guess you could say, to the point where you can get training now. I think it's Olds College has a program.
College has a 2-year program, and I think you come out of there as a brewing technician or a brewer. I don't know exactly what the terminology is there. Yeah.
Okay, so you get what you need there, and then how do we get to this stage where we're at today with the Lakeland Brewing Company itself? So you opened it's July of 2016.
July of 2016. We're coming up to 5 years here. Yeah. We were slow. It took about a year. Guys warned me that it's going to take you about a year to open up. It took us 2 years to open up.
Okay.
There's some bureaucracy. There's lots of hoops to jump through. Yeah, it was just kind of we trudged along, and when we did finally open up in July, we were number 39 in the province. At that time, that was a big number back in 2016. Now I think there's 150 operating and 200 licensed, so there's another 50 in planning. So we're playing catch up with the rest of the country.
Which is interesting, because I read a book last summer, and it was about this industry growth here in Alberta. And one of the most interesting parts of where is the number one producer of barley for brewing in the world? Where does it come from?
Yeah, right here, central Alberta.
There we go.
Yeah. And you take it for granted too. I went to a brewing a conference down in Denver, and it just there's like 3,000 brewers from all over the world at this conference. And we're just sitting down and having lunch one day, chatting, and asking where are you from, small talk, this and that. And these guys from Germany, they said, "You're from Canada. What part of Canada?" I said, "Alberta." "Whereabouts?" So they want to come. They want to see. I want to see this barley. It's the most sought after barley in the world.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And we have we've got fields of it everywhere here. Yeah.
Okay, so 5 years you've been in business here at the Lakeland Brewing Company. Is there, in those 5 years, I know there's a lot of stories, a lot of things have gone on here. It's been a great place. Like I said, it's one of my favorite places. Me and my wife visit at least once a week. And it's not just the beer, but the atmosphere too, the people and everything. Is there, a moment or moments or just something in general over the last 5 years that really stand out as something you kind of happy about, a favorite memory moment, or just something you're proud of?
You know what? And I get asked that lots. Why did I do this? I just didn't like sitting down and having a beer with people. And I didn't really have a business plan. I didn't really have a forecast or anything. We just kind of flew by the seat of our pants. I operate this if it breaks even, I'm happy.
Yeah.
But what I really found, and right off the get-go quite early is it's a sense of community. I cringe when people say, "Oh, you own a bar." No, I don't own a bar. We're open 3 or 4 days a week from 4 p.m. till 9 p.m. It's not a bar. The busiest time, especially during the week on a Wednesday or Thursday, 4 till 5:30. People just meet here for a beer after work, and then off they go home for supper. I don't want to sound like an old fogey or anything or yearning for the past, but it is kind of like the way things used to be.
You know what? And that's the feeling I get in here, and I think that's the attraction to it. It's the social media's eliminated from our lives for a little bit. And there's people that are sitting here by themselves, and all of a sudden they're just part of the conversation with everybody going. It's a nice, small, cozy environment.
Yeah, and you've seen our way our tables are set up. At one time, we used to have them in rows, and I want to get back to that as well once COVID's gone.
Right.
One big long row of tables. You're forced to sit down next to somebody you may not know,
right,
or sit across from somebody, and before you know it, I've seen millions of conversations sparked up, and friendships actually from people from out of town sitting across from each other, just reminiscing, talking over a beer, and that was my dream. This was not not a bar, like I said, not a late night thing, anything like that. Just a fun place to come and have a beer.
Yeah, and I think that you said you didn't have much of a business plan, but I think that's the best business plan ever.
Sometimes
sitting down and having beer with you. Who doesn't want that? You said a sense of community, and I like how you point that out, because you've been very involved. The Lakeland Brewing Company has been integral with community involvement, whether it's been just promoting events or actually doing like fundraisers. I know we've had all kinds of charity fundraisers, from comedy nights to trivia nights to there's been live music here. So like, how many different groups and organizations have you been involved with since opening up here? That's
a good question. In the back of the brewing area, I have a wall that's covered with all the posters for the events that we've had, and there's over 100 there.
Wow.
It's just the community was good to me. Operating a pharmacy for 25 years, and my dad prior to that for 30 years. And if this is the least I can do to give back to the community. Even this room that we're sitting in here upstairs in the brewery, this was built and this gets used more often than not. Not for profit groups want to have a meeting, or hockey teams want to have a meeting, or somebody wants to have a meeting up here. This is a free meeting area, and of course you might have a beer with your meeting. So who doesn't want to go to a not-for-profit meeting? And
I think it helps meetings move along a little bit better sometimes, or not. I guess it depends how much beer you're drinking with that. That's absolutely fantastic. Thanks so much for sharing with that, Colin. Now, besides all the charities you've helped with, this is what kind of surprised me a little bit. Last year, we're doing a hockey draft here just before the playoffs, and there was a 50-50 draw. Whoever won the 50-50 kept half. The other half they donated to a charity of their choice. And the gentleman that won had donated to a charity I'm surprised I never heard of, but it's something that you're quite involved with that I'd like you to expand a little bit more about. It's called Second Harvest. Mm-hmm. Tell us about that.
It's a great organization, and you know, we probably don't promote it enough, mainly because we're busy enough as it is, but it does. So what it is we started it, I don't know how many years ago, at least 7 or 8 years ago. All the food from the grocery stores, especially the fresh produce that is no longer sellable, just ends up getting thrown away. And there's a kind of a window there where it's maybe not sellable or marketable anymore, but it's still edible. So we have daily pickups at both the Sobeys and the co-op grocery stores in town here, and they're excellent to do this for us. We pick up the produce every single day. It gets stored in a refrigerator, and in 2 or 3 times a week, we have a group of volunteers run by a team leader of volunteers, and they process this food. What they can, they'll cull a lot of it, but they'll process this food into either pre-packaged meals, whether they cook it and prepare it in soups, different things like that. And then it goes out in the community. The volunteers who come are allowed to take whatever they want to take. So it's open to anybody who wants to do that. The rest of it will go to either the Manawanas Friendship Center, the Capella Women's Shelter. A lot of the school lunch programs are using it as well. And I, off the top of my head, one of the numbers that comes to mind, and this was last year, we diverted 48,000 kilograms of produce that would have just ended up straight into the landfill, and went around and turned that into, I think they worked out to 170,000 portions of food.
When you say we started this is just your family that
No,
started?
no. It's myself, Rosh and Shirley Stromberg, who aren't in the community anymore, and a fellow by the name of Dave Robinson, who actually works at the food bank as well. And I got to put a shout out to Dave Robinson, because to be honest, he's the backbone of the food bank and of the Second Harvest program. So he does all the work. I shouldn't be taking any real,
It sounds like there's a lot of work involved. So if people wanted to get involved, where can they find out more, or how to get involved?
Contact myself, contact Dave Robinson, go to the food bank. We're always looking for volunteers, certainly. But when I first got involved with it, I the concept sounded great. I didn't realize the magnitude of it. And since we've started, I believe Lakeland is trying a program. Bonnyville and Cold Lake have both implemented a similar program too. Mm-hmm. So no, it's you don't realize how much food is going to waste, and if we can one divert it from going to the landfill, but 2 to actually turning it into to well over 170,000 meals.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And when we think of the food bank, I mean, they rely a lot on like non-perishables, so that the fact that they can get more fresh, so that when people need it, they're actually getting more healthier meals. I think that's important in general too. Like that's helping.
Absolutely.
Way down the line, and the effects are going to be amazing with that. Colin, thank you so much again for doing this. This is going to be a bit of a shorter episode, I know, but I mean, I thought it was important to get you involved in this because so many people know you. Colin Porozni, he's here at the Lakeland Brewing Company. You can follow them. You got a Facebook page, Instagram. Mm-hmm. It's Lakeland Brewing Company. With Second Harvest, do you guys have any social media that people can?
We do not, unfortunately.
Okay. No. Okay. So, but like you said, find out more through. Come visit Colin. He's got some great product here that he can share with you, and then tell you more about Second Harvest. We should do an episode down the road. I just thought of this just now, that every time there's been a beer on tap, there's always a great story behind it. Some have a little bit more detail than others, but there's been so many great stories with all of these.
You're right. We probably could spend an entire podcast just on the names of the beers. And,
what I'm thinking here, this is what I have in mind, is you'll tell me about the beer and the story behind it, and I'll sample the beer.
That works for me.
And I hear they're pint-sized samples as well.
We can do pitcher-sized samples.
Again, thank you so much. Someone completely interesting, Lakeland Brewing Company.